business is just like any other game in life. You need to have the right players on the field. You need to have the right support and team and coaching staff. You need to have the right infrastructure and facilities. You need to have the proper funding. You need to have the right brand and reputation. And, there's a lot of different elements, but when all put together, if you do it properly and you have the right leadership team and you've enabled them and empowered them, you're probably going to have a fair amount of success.
Can the ability to embrace humility be the hidden superpower that sets great leaders apart from the rest? Welcome to the Care to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Corsetti, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Richard Boudria, the CEO of BCN, a dynamic and growing leader of telecom industry. Richard is passionate about uncovering the essential traits that make leaders truly great, traits like humility, curiosity, and a strong commitment to service. Richard, it's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's dive in. In the article in Authority Magazine, you talked about humility being a critical trait for leaders. So how do you define humility in leadership, and how has this shaped your personal leadership journey?
Well, when you're in a position of leadership, I think it's important that you realize you have the ability to either negatively or positively impact other people's lives. And obviously, I'm always trying to help our people. And if something happens in their life or they need some support, we're here to step in and help them. Because the reality is that if they're not able to resolve something in their personal life, it's probably going to impact them professionally as well. And so if I can step in, or if the company can step in, or the team, and help that person, whether it's a professional issue or a personal issue, at the end of the day, they can focus primarily on their responsibilities in their professional life and in their personal life. So the way I look at it again is I'm in a position to help people. So that's what I do. And that's what we've always done for the last 30 years. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a high retention rate. And, we kind of operate more as like a family. We operate, if you want to think about it in the terms of maybe sports or athletics, we look and feel like a D1 team out in the field or out in the industry. But back at home base, it's more of like a D3, smaller, more intimate family type of environment and setting where, everyone's here to help each other, and we're all here to row the boat in the same direction, if you will. And, we've done a lot of things as a company to incent our people to focus and work together to ultimately finish and complete and accomplish their goal, whether it's a project or an opportunity or a quote or whatever it is. We do everything we can to make everything as efficient and seamless and simple as possible.
That's wonderful. It tells me a lot about the culture of your organization and how you've cultivated that. Tell us a little bit more about the company. How large is it? How many employees do you have? And I know it's founded by your father. Tell us a little bit more about the history.
Sure. So BCN provides voice, data, cloud, and wireless services domestically and internationally to now over 8,000 business customers. Our primary focus is multi-location business customers who have a multi-product, multi-service, multi-network requirement. The value add that BCN brings to the table is the fact that we have over 500 different underlying providers. And what we do in partnership with our selling partners or trusted advisors is look at each opportunity with the customer, and we'll actually even run a free audit up front to show the customer what they have by location, by product, by service, by spend, and then what that would look like with BCN. So, we from the beginning are essentially creating and building a bespoke solution for our customers. And we're able to do that because we have no minimums or minimums or commitments on our underlying contracts. So we're truly agnostic in the design and solution delivery when we're creating that. So, when you look at a customer that's got 500 locations and they need multiple products and services by location, we can look at every individual location and deliver the best product, service, and solution that's available at that site. But at the end of the day, bring it all back to a single bill, a single customer portal, and a single point of contact.
That's awesome. How many employees do you have?
So today, company-wide, we have about 125 employees. Our headquarters is in Morristown, New Jersey. That's where our customer service, finance, regulatory collections, party sales support takes place. Then we have down in Boca Raton, Florida, that's kind of we call it our engine room. So all of our back office functions that take place there, whether it's provisioning, billing, trouble and repair, carrier reconciliation, engineering, logistics, all the stuff that happens in the background that actually creates the finished product, if you will, that all takes place down in Florida. And then we have a small office out in Wisconsin, but the rest of the team is spread across 20 different states. And those teammates are supporting trusted advisors or selling partners in the channel nationwide. So we have selling partners in every state and we have customers in every state. So that's kind of why we're set up the way we are in that regard. But like I said, we've been doing this now for 30 years. So we've had a lot of practice and we've gotten good at what we do. And we're blessed to have the opportunity. We have a wonderful team here that's incredibly knowledgeable because they've been doing it for so long here, but also before they came here. And since they've been here, we're big proponents of promoting within. So a lot of our teammates, they've done not just the role they're in now, but maybe 3 or 4 other roles in the company. So they know if they're in provisioning or order entry, they probably came from project management or major account support or the pricing group or even sales support. So they understand they're part of the process, right? But they also understand the other parts of the process. So together they can work better as a team and ultimately deliver a better solution at the end of the day.
That's great. When you think about leadership from your own perspective, and if I were to ask you, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who wants to be a future leader in a company? Maybe they're a director level now or a VP, but they want to get into that EVP or CEO role. What's one piece of advice you would like to offer them?
I would tell them to not be afraid or intimidated by raising their hand and be willing to try and do new and different things that ultimately will help the company and help the teams and help them as an individual, but it'll also allow them to be seen or noticed, if you will, among the executive team and executive ranks. And if you're the go-to person, right? If you're constantly getting it done day in and day out, regardless of what it is, when it comes time to look to find the next leader or next person in the team or in the organization to promote, you're probably going to look at the individual who was there and getting it done, even when they weren't asked to do it. They showed up and they made it happen. And it's a lot of times it's the quiet leader, if you will, or individual that's not making a lot of noise, but they're getting a lot done. Mm-hmm. And like my dad used to say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person, because they know how to prioritize and they understand that, regardless of what the objective is or what the request is, there's a reason for it. And, my biggest thing within BCN or even just as a leader is transparency, right? So you have to help everyone understand where you're trying to take the organization and why, and what's in it for them, right? So we're going to ask you to work really hard. We're going to ask you to push yourself to the limits, but here's what we're trying to accomplish together as a team. And here's why that's relevant and important to the company. And here's why this is relevant and important to you as an individual, right? Whether it's compensation or flexibility or additional vacation days or a promotion or an opportunity to lead a new team. When you're in in an organization like BCN that's growing consistently 20+% year over year, hiring new people, every month, there's a lot of opportunity to raise your hand and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to help with that, or I want to learn more about that, or can I, be put on that team because I think I can add value. There's just so many different paths that you can go, right? And my job as the CEO or leader is to basically get all the red tape, anything that would hold someone back from being able to accomplish their goal or their team goal. My job is to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful and for me to get out of the way and obviously guide them and support them if they need it. But for the most part, if you hire good people and you train them and teach them and they become part of a great team, as long as you're giving them the resources they need and you're, guiding them or checking in, not micromanaging, but, maybe a weekly check-in, whatever flow or process the company has or individual has as the team leader. At the end of the day, they're the ones on the field doing the job, right? So I grew up playing sports. I played football, hockey, and lacrosse in high school, football in college, and, tried to play a little bit after that. But, you think about it, when you play football, there's 11 players on the team. And, there's obviously a head coach and then there's position coaches. But at the end of the day, of course, you're going to practice together. You're going to spend a lot of time together as a team. We're going to, the goal is obviously to try to win the game or have a great season. But, the coach can only coach so much, right? At that point, once the game starts and the players on the field, they need to work together in order to win the game. They need to understand how it all flows, how it all works. This is my role. This is my position. That's that person's role. That's their position. But together, here's how it all works. And here's how it's all supposed to flow. And the coach is there basically to provide support and guidance. And, if something's not working or someone got hurt or whatever, those types of decisions, obviously the coach is there to make those and to continue to make sure that the team's prepared to play in the game. But, these concepts are, in my opinion, common sense, right? And when you apply that to leadership, a lot of it's just kind of common sense, right? If someone needs help or needs something, if you're not willing to step in and help them or celebrate the wins or celebrate their successes, you probably shouldn't be in that leadership position because that's going to negatively impact the rest of the team, which is going to ultimately negatively impact the team and the company's performance.
So in order to perform the way you're talking about having your teams perform, I agree. Yes, you need strong leadership who's able to remove roadblocks and lead them along the way. But it's also important that there's a culture where there's not a fear of taking risk. A lot of organizations, the leader will say, "Yes, we want people to take risk. We learn from our mistakes. It's a great." But the reality is, if they mess up, it's a big problem. Which has this dichotomy between what the leader says and what the leader does. So I'm curious, in your organization, what do you do to foster a culture that says it's okay to make mistakes?
So, one of the programs we put in place a few years ago was a company-wide bonus plan. And, there's obviously additional plans for team members in sales or the executive team. The team might have an additional plan on top of that team-wide plan. Mm-hmm. But that team-wide plan is measured on revenue and attrition. So obviously revenue, right? That's typically handled by the sales team. And attrition is also typically handled by the sales team or maybe a return team or an upsell return group. But the way we look at it is, at the end of the day, that customer, right, is calling us with either an issue or something's going on, whether it's a billing event or a repair event or even a collections event, right? Let's say you have a new customer, they just started billing, you're still installing, they just got their first first or second bill, or maybe they were set up for email billing and it went to spam, right? If you have a collections person on the other end, they just started as a customer and someone's calling them and, kind of ripping their face off and demanding payment and threatening. And, that's going to be a negative impact on the customer relationship, but also on the selling partner, trusted advisor relationship, right? So situations like that where we've empowered the collections team, right, to look at these situations and apply common sense, right? It's like, okay, they just became a customer. We're still trying to figure out the billing, or maybe the person that we signed the paperwork with is no longer there. Maybe there's a new team in place. They're trying to figure that part out. Meanwhile, our bill's been coming in, but no one really knows what to do with it because we just became a vendor, right? So if you have a collections person who can use common sense and is empowered to say, hey, look, we understand you just became a customer. We understand that, there could be a billing issue here. Let's get that all figured out. And then let's figure out payment, right? Let's talk about that. That's a different type of approach and conversation than, a lot of other companies, right? Where it's going out to a call center or it's going out to a third party. They don't know anything about the situation, the relationship, the partner who sold it, the customer. They're just reacting, right? And so our goal is to make sure that whoever is speaking to the customer, partner, or vendor, right, realizes that one phone call or that one email or that one text, right, can throw the relationship in the wrong direction. And obviously our goal is to continue to strengthen the relationship and make it better than it was before, right? So that's just one example, but we have that type of mentality across the company. So everyone in the company is empowered to make decisions. Now, why is that important? Well, you know what? There's 8,000 customers. There's, over 100 employees. There's thousands of vendors. There's a lot going on here every day, right? But we've empowered the teams to make decisions. And we also understand that when you empower someone to make a decision, sometimes they're not going to make the best decision, right? And that goes for everyone, including myself. And so, you have to be able to be empathetic and understand that, look, you've put this person in a position to make decisions. They've made 10 decisions this week and 9 out of the 10 were great. They made one bad one. It is what it is. You have to get together, understand what happened, communicate and explain, going forward, here's probably how you should handle this, and move on together, right? And move on to the next one, because there's going to be more. And especially in today's world, there's always something going on, right? Whether it's political, something in the economy, whether it's a conflict. I mean, there's so many different things, a pandemic. We just, came out of one of those. I mean, there's so many things going on in the world today that you need to have people in a position mentally where they feel like they have some say and control, right? Which they do. But they also realize that, again, they're not going to get it right every time. We're all humans, right? And none of us are perfect. And, I always think about that song from the 80s, that basically talks about, you're only human and people make mistakes. And, that is the way of the world. And we're not robots. We're not machines, even though, down the road that might change with AI and a few of the other technologies coming out. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all in this together. And, I go back to using common sense. If, no one comes in or wakes up and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to make a bunch of mistakes today. That's not typically what people want to do. They want to have success. They want to do well. They want to feel good about what they're doing. So, I think as a leader, you have to understand that, again, people are human. Things are going to happen, but you have to learn from those mistakes, like you mentioned earlier. But more importantly, try to figure out, how do we prevent them going forward? And you know what? When they do happen, you have to, as the leader, control your reaction. and stay calm and stay poised and look at the whole situation, understand what happened, and then provide guidance and leadership with that individual or with that team to help them get through whatever just occurred. And again, try to prevent it from going forward. But again, we're not machines. And I just, after being in a leadership position for a long time, you just start to kind of realize and see and pick up on the fact that there are going to be problems, things are going to happen. But if you're, constantly yelling or ripping people's faces off, that doesn't accomplish anything. And it actually it sets everything back. So at the end of the day, if you're not, using common sense, being a good leader, being empathetic, you're probably not going to have a great team because you're probably going to have retention issues. And, if you're constantly having to bring in new people and train them, you never build that continuity. You never build that team spirit. And you need to have that in order to be successful in business, right? Business is just like any other game in life. You need to have the right players on the field. You need to have the right support and team and coaching staff. You need to have the right infrastructure and facilities. You need to have the proper funding. You need to have the right brand and reputation. And, there's a lot of different elements, but when all put together, if you do it properly and you have the right leadership team and you've enabled them and empowered them, you're probably going to have a fair amount of success. But I've seen it time and time again where people come in and, it's either a absentee leadership team or it's a leadership team that was put in place, not a team that was built over time or, worked in different roles and positions in the company. Or, you bring people in from the outside and they don't really take the time or energy to understand the team that they just got put in charge of, right? Or the individuals on that team, or the pros and cons of each individual on that team, right? Because not everyone's the same. Certain people have certain skill sets that are better for certain roles versus others. So my thing is find the right people, make sure they're in the right seats, empower them, give them what they need to be successful, give them a little room so they can, operate. And again, be there to be a good support system, guide them. And if something goes wrong, we deal with it, we learn from it, and we move on together.
So my next question for you, Richard, is I'm a believer as an executive coach. I've been coaching since 2011. And what I have learned in coaching C-suite executives for that much time is that the biggest learning that an executive has happens through the mistakes that they make, through mishaps that took a turn that they didn't expect. So my curiosity for you is, what is the biggest mistake you've made in your leadership journey, and what did you learn from it?
Well, the list is long. There's a lot of different examples, I guess I could use, but I think overall or in general, one of the mistakes I feel like I made was when I was younger and in leadership positions and roles, maybe my expectation was off base or a little too high, or my, reaction to things was a little intense. The more time I spent in leadership roles and the older I got and the more mature I became and the more time and energy I spent on, educating myself even further with leadership, the concept of leadership, because everyone's got different ways of leading, right? I think I look back on some of the things I've done in the past and I wish I had, slowed down or taken the time to really dig in and understand what was going on instead of listening for a high level summary, essentially of what occurred, and then reacting to that news and then, kind of not handling it really in the best form or fashion. So I think that would probably be the most overarching concept that I think I've improved a great deal on or have figured out or learned the best way to kind of proceed versus, when you're younger, you're kind of, there's a lot, you have a lot on your mind. You're trying to move up the organization. You're trying to make everything bigger and better. And, sometimes you got to slow down and realize that, like I mentioned earlier, people are people, humans are humans. And, people have families, people have stuff going on in their life that you don't know about. And you have to understand that and think about that before you, again, react or kind of come into a situation and try to rush your way through it. So I guess my biggest thing was learning how to slow down, listen, understand what's going on, and then kind of assess the situation, assess who's involved, whether it's a vendor, a customer, a partner, assess who within the team, who it is, how they are, all those different kinds of things that I guess happen really more with experience and knowledge. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that I know I've personally been working on for a long time, because I think back over the years and, I know I could have handled a few situations differently or better. So,
what's a fun fact that our listeners wouldn't know about you based on your LinkedIn profile or your company profile?
Fun fact would be I love to be outdoors. So I enjoy playing golf and hunting and fishing. But I guess one of my true passions would be cars. So I've always been kind of a car nut. And so that's something that I spend a lot of time, money, and energy on, but brings me great joy and pleasure. I like taking, somewhat older cars or whatever it is. I like kind of coming in, looking at it, taking it apart, rebuilding it, and making it bigger and better than it was before. So,
are you a good golfer?
I'm right now between a 10 and a 12. If I had more time, I think I could be even better. My younger brother, George, he's the big golfer in our family. And he takes after my mom's brother, George Burns, who played on tour back in the 80s and 90s. So I love the game. Unfortunately, it takes a great deal of time. And with young children and a growing business, it's hard to spend all the time out there, but
yeah, I have a stepson who's a +1 handicap, and now he's in residency, and he's a physician in residency, and he's like, I think my handicap's going to change a little bit.
I think so.
So
yeah, probably won't go in the right direction for a little bit, but eventually he'll be able to get back out there and work on it.
So now we're going to go into what I call the lightning round, and I'm going to ask you just some quick questions, and I want you to come up with the first thing that comes to your mind in short, fast answers to get to know you a little bit better. So what is your go-to morning routine?
So I typically wake up around 6 a.m. I go downstairs, I let the dog out, I take a bunch of vitamins, healthy vitamins to try to stay in the best shape I can. I have a little light breakfast, shower, and then go to the office. So that's typically my morning routine.
Okay.
On the weekends, I obviously still follow that, but spend more time, obviously, with my wife and children. And my wife's the boss for the weekend plans and activities. So I just kind of go where I'm told and do what I can do to help out.
Who is a historical figure that you admire and why?
I'd say there's a lot of them, but I would say, I was reading and watching some documentaries on, Winston Churchill. And if you think about what he as a leader had to go through and, between the war, what was going on in his country, obviously the country was reduced to rubble. I can't even imagine what that would be like, especially back then without all the technologies we have in order to communicate in today's world. In order for someone to, stay in that role for as long as he did and deal with all the different things that he had to deal with as a leader during wartime back then, I just think it's beyond impressive. But there's a lot of different people that I would mention, that are historical and just incredible in nature. But he would probably be the first that jumps to my mind based on just recent reading and research.
What book has had the greatest impact on your leadership philosophy?
Ooh, that's a tough question because there's so many great books out there right now about leadership. If you go into the Forbes, kind of leadership position or leadership role library of books, if you look in there, there's so many different books on leadership. And I think it's important to think about what stage of leadership you're in and then, read up on that, right? And become a student of that phase of leadership, right? Because like I said earlier, there's younger leaders, there's older leaders, there's some that are, more aggressive in nature. There's some that are a little more complacent. It just depends on the individual. I guess just a book, I'd say, for leadership, business in general, just life. I'm a big fan of the Dale Carnegie books and his those workshops and the school that they have, the institution. How to make friends and influence people. That's one of the first books I read when I started working. And that book really kind of helped me understand, frame up, and just position or think about, situations or experiences or, the next opportunity. How am I going to approach this differently now that I have this knowledge? And, that's something that really helped me early on in my career.
That's great. So finally, as my listeners already know, Care to Lead is my signature leadership system and is built on 4 foundational principles or pillars, and that's clarity, authenticity, responsibility, and engagement, therefore care. So Richard, if you had to choose one of these pillars to say has had the most impact or resonance on your success, which one of those pillars would it be?
I would say the care element, right? Because I care deeply about our people. I care deeply about the success of this company. And I know that, the people on our team, the people in this company, that's our greatest asset as a company. And when you look at, all the different things we do and how we do it, it's very complex. It's very confusing. There's not a lot of companies left that do what we do because it's very hard. Now, if you know how to do what we do and you have a great team and you've been doing it for a long time, you can have a lot of success. And we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of success. So my big thing is, how do I help? How do I give back? Not just to this company or to the people that work here, but to the communities we operate in. How do we help people, right? That's my biggest thing. I like to help people. It feels good. And, I like to be able to see people have success in their own life personally. And whether that's, starting a family, buying a new home, buying a new car, taking a vacation or trip they've always wanted to take, completing a bucket list item, whatever it is that's important to them, that's important to me. So, I'd say that pillar is probably the most important. I mean, I'm not discounting the other 3 by any means, but for me, when you look at any situation, any company, if you're the leader in that company or that position, you have to have a sense of gratitude, and you have to, it's really hard to be a great leader if you're not, I don't want to say, if you're somewhat selfish, you're probably not going to be a great leader, because you need to be excited and happy to see others have success, right? And Jack Welch talks a lot about this. He's got some great, material, and he's got his, leadership institution. But if you read and watch him talk about leadership, that's one point that he specifically brings up. And it is a valid point, because a lot of times when you get into, these larger companies, there's a lot of different politics that take place, right? And, a lot of times you can have a sales team, right? And a lot of times companies cap the bonus or comp on the sales team, right? Because the executives might feel like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to make less than the sales guy. Well, the reality is that if you don't cap the sales team like we do here, we have no caps on any compensation here, right? My thing is if you work hard and you're successful, okay, and I owe you a big bonus, that's a good thing, right? That means you did a great job. That means your team did a great job. That means as a company, we did a great job. And, it also means that I guess as a leader, I'm doing something right because we're having success. And so for me, it's, I don't care about what I make or get. It's more about how are my people doing, and are they having success? And am I putting them in a position to have success? And if they are having success, let's celebrate that, and let's see what we can do to put them in a position to have even more success and, get promoted or move up the line. Right. And even if it's someone, and we've had this happen in the past where we have great people, they came in as an intern, or they started with us as a young professional, they spent time here, they did well, and they moved on to somewhere else, right? That, in my mind, speaks volumes about what we're doing here, right? Because anytime someone wants to leave the company, or they want to try something different, or they have a new opportunity, they typically get hired immediately because everyone knows that, we operate, differently in the space, right? And we operate more like a family business feel and vibe. For me, when people go to another company, even if they've been here for a while, I think that's a good thing for them. And it's a good thing for the company here. And it's good for everyone else here because they see that there's upward mobility, that, if you put your time in here and you learn and listen and you become a student and expert in what we do here, right? You can take that and apply it anywhere else, not just in this industry, but in business in general. For me, that's one of the biggest, I guess, signs of success would be seeing someone promoted. Of course, I'd love to keep them here, but if they have an opportunity to go somewhere else and they really want to go, we're actually going to help them do that, right? We're not going to say, oh, well, you're leaving in 2 weeks, so see you later. We don't want to talk to you ever again, and you don't need to come in anymore. Our thing is, how do we help you make this a positive exit, right? And I think everyone else sees that, and they realize that that's how we are and operate as a business. And down the road, especially in our space, it's a very small industry, right? So everyone, at some point, you're probably going to reconnect or run into or work with someone that you worked with in the past, right? So there's no reason to burn the bridge. This should be seen as a good thing. If anything, you're building another bridge to more opportunity with that individual down the road. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Richard, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. I truly got a lot out of this. And to our listeners, I hope you've gained as much inspiration as I have from this conversation. Richard, thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate the opportunity.
And for the listeners out there, remember, leaders who care to lead. I'll see you next time.